Hi, and welcome back to Next Level Consulting. And today we're going to be interviewing with Sean from Integrity Tree. And today we're going to talk about EOS. So welcome, Sean. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. And I love EOS. I'm a huge fan. And so a little bit about myself. I've been involved in a number of different companies, 7. I've got 2 successful exits. 3 failures, which are always, some of my favorites because I learned the most through them. And then currently in a couple different businesses as well. So it's just a little bit of background, but my current business is tree services, all manner of tree services, hazard trees, you name it.
Nice. No, how long have you been in the area?
I moved here in 2014.
All right.
Been around a bit.
Cool. Very good. So would it be fair to say you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
So as our program and as our training is for entrepreneurs, I think we have the right guy to be talking about entrepreneurship and his method of running his companies. So what made you become an entrepreneur?
Well, there's a lot of facets to that, but I love the challenge of it. Of course, we all love to create, and we like to work for ourselves and to, some manner. I try not to buy myself a low-paying job with entrepreneurship, but ultimately I'd like to get to business ownership more than just being self-employed, but lots of different reasons. I get to go and be with and enjoy, who I want, when I want, where I want, that type
all
of
of those things. Okay. So you've already touched on this, but how long have you been running your current business, your current enterprise businesses? You've got a couple,
Sure.
You said.
I've got a couple, but my main one that I'm focusing on right now is Integrity Tree Services, and I'm in my 2nd year with that business.
Nice. And I will just say, if you need a tree service guy in the Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, whatever area, I've used him. He's really good. So what makes you passionate about being that entrepreneur?
I want to work on things that are meaningful to me. I want to work on things, on projects that interest me. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to, is being able to do those things.
Right, because being an entrepreneur and owning your own business, it sounds great, right? It has this sexy quality to it. Oh, I have my own business. I'm an entrepreneur. It sounds really good. Mm-hmm. But there's a really big downside, right?
Oh yeah, I mean it's challenging, right? I mean it's you are ultimately responsible for everything that happens or doesn't happen. So those whereas if and nothing wrong with this, but if as a W-2 employee you're going to go work for somebody else, there's a system. Sometimes there's a system in place, and
you would hope
you jump in and you
do your job,
and then you go home. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, very true. Okay, so what was the biggest challenge you're faced in running your own business?
Oh, many challenges, but I think ultimately it is you need to have a system in place, right? So the biggest challenge is if you don't have a system, a lot of times you're trying to recreate systems, right? Whereas if you go to work for a big organization, those systems are already in place.
Right.
So I think a systemization is a huge challenge in entrepreneurship, and of course, business development. I'd say that's those 2 pieces are what I find to be the biggest challenges in multiple businesses.
And what would you say if you go back to the beginning of when you started your entrepreneur kind of journey, what would you say was the one thing that you kind of wish that you could go back and change?
Well, if I could go back and find EOS or something like EOS from the beginning of my journey, that would make a huge difference because, again, it's that systemization. So I can think back on to ventures that I've tried at different times in my life, and it was just flying by the seat of my pants, shooting from the hip. All of those good analogies.
It'll work if I hold on long enough.
Hard enough.
Yeah.
And so there's some foundational things. There's there's EOS, and there's other concepts like profit first,
and
things
system
like
and soul.
that.
Yes.
Yes. That if I would have known those things, that would have been extremely helpful.
So one of the things that I love, like you, is EOS, right? And so for our listeners, EOS is the Entrepreneur Operating System. And it's been around for several years now, out of the East Coast kind of area, finally getting its way over here to the Pacific Coast. But EOS is a business management tool. It is a way of managing your business by looking at it not as a firefighting kind of, we'll work on here, but then we'll put the fire out over there. And then we'll run over here and we'll do this. And then we'll put the fire out over here. It actually gives you a structure. And of course, the huge thing, the accountability. So why, apart from, well, you've already said why EOS for you. What was your experience with EOS?
That's a great question. First, how I ran into it is I ran into the book Traction.
Okay.
And I had heard, I do some real estate investing as well, and I'd heard about it through this company that was a little bit bigger of an investment outfit, and they're oh man, EOS, or the book Traction, and so I finally read it, and I was like, boom, this is the thing. This is the, it's not that it's necessarily the only system, but it is a system that is extremely effective.
Yeah.
And so my experience with it then is I got into it and read it, and I worked in this, in a bigger organization, $15 to $20 million a year company. And I brought, as the vice president of operations, I brought EOS into that company.
Okay.
Now, that was an interesting phenomenon because everybody was like, what? We don't have time for that.
And you self-implemented?
I self-implemented and got that going in that company, and it started to gain traction.
Cool.
And it was very instrumental in kind of kicking that in pieces of that company in the right direction. Okay, so that was a bigger organization. Then those same owners, we went into business in a separate business that I ran. And so, of course, I brought EOS into there as the integrator. And this was about $1 million a year business that we grew to about $5 million a year.
Wow.
And it was instrumental in that as well.
Yeah.
But, even with those two kind of bigger organizations, then I brought it into a startup. And I was thinking like, well, is EOS really the right thing for a startup?
Right.
And my answer personally is like adapting it is yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I find it very helpful. And so when I went into, the VTO became my strategic plan.
Right.
And then in those types of things. And so I found it to be very, very good across both big organizations and even startups.
And startups, yeah. And I would agree. I remember my husband having had a business for 38 years or 30, I think we were at 34 years at that time, expanded, doing great, went to 3 offices, and everything went to hell in a handbasket. And so I had gone to a conference. Somebody said, oh, you should really read this book about, this EOS. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I didn't have a book for the plane going home, downloaded it. By the time I got off the plane, I had completed the book, got home, and my husband had always been going to conferences, always came home, was like always fired up. And I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
I am fired up. Like, this is what we're doing. Yeah. And he was like, I don't know. And I'm like, no, see, this is what we're doing because this is going to get us out of that mess. Yeah. And so we've been doing EOS for his company now for 5+ years.
Oh, awesome.
And so, yes, it completely changed the landscape of the business. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it, because to me, it really encompasses, it's much more than this, but there's 2 major elements for me that are important in startups or running an organization of any kind.
Right.
And that is that long-term vision or those, those long-term targets.
Right.
And then the process of how to do it now.
Yes.
Right. And that's, EOS covers those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Absolutely. What would, if you were going to give a piece of advice to a new entrepreneur, some of our new entrepreneurs that are just starting or they've started and they're like, oh, this is maybe a little bit more than what I anticipated. What would your one piece of advice be?
Oh, wow. One?
Yeah. Just give them one nugget because you can't give them all.
Yeah. Well,
you'll come back and give them more.
Honestly, my nugget would be is, one is obviously don't get analysis paralysis, right?
Right.
However, get some training. Right. Get some basic training. I'm not talking about, 4 years of college. I'm talking about like an EOS program or, read some books. I could give you a handful of books to read and go utilize this from day one.
Yes.
And that it'll be all the difference.
Right.
You.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So. Which is in our EMS training, it's all about that. It's about going back to the beginning, getting that foundation squared away so that as you grow, you're not having to come back and go, oh, hang on a minute now. I never spent any time doing this and now I don't have the time and now I've got to have the time. So doing that basic work for me, like, that's how you really get a business to off the ground. And if you can, in all medical terms, prevention is better than cure.
Absolutely.
Trying to go back and fix it all behind after the horse is bolted is always harder than doing it right the first time and doing it right in the beginning.
Yes, and ironically, if you'll talk to a lot of young entrepreneurs, and it was myself as well, is I don't have time to sit down and do that kind of work.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you don't have time not to sit down and do that type of work. Because sitting down and doing that type of work will actually save you time.
Time, yes. And a lot of energy, time, money, and energy in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming in. I really do appreciate it.
Sure.
And yes, you'll have to come and talk to the group in person. I think they're all looking forward to it.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Well, that was our episode today. I hope you've enjoyed it and you got something out of it. If you need to call us, it's Judy Tebow at Next Level Consulting, 907-354-6972. You can always go to the website and schedule a call through that. Again, nextlevelconsultingus.com. All right. Thank you.